Okay, this is part 2 or part B of the contract formation, chapter 8. You'll notice also I am framing this so that it does show some comments at the bottom of the slide. When you're looking at these slides, if you go to the full screen, you won't see these notes, but if you just click on PowerPoint, you'll have the slides on the left, and at the bottom you can see the notes for the chapter. Okay, contract formation, down to the nitty-gritty. What does it take to make a contract that's enforceable in the courts? Well, you have to have an agreement. Remember, we said that there had to be an agreement between the parties. There has to be an offer, and there has to be an acceptance. Sounds pretty simple, right? There has to be an intent to commit, and there have to be definiteness. So for an offer to be made, the party has to, it can't be a joke, it can't be marketing or advertising, it has to be something that is the intention of the party is to make the offer. Look at the Pepsi case, the sidebar on page 8.3, page 245. And then there must be an acceptance. The acceptance can be bilateral. We talked about that, a promise for a promise. A unilateral. Somebody comes in and you say you'll pay them $5 to mow the yard. They mow the yard. They've accepted the contract. And you can have acceptance when the one party accepting it deposits their acceptance, saying, I agree with you, in the mail. Look at Jenkins v. Tune-Up Masters in 1987. We have that as one of our cases this week. And you'll see what it means. What it says is that party makes an offer, the other party accepts it, they sign the acceptance, they drop it in the mailbox, and as of the time that it is mailed, not the time that the party receives it, but when it's dropped in the mail, the courts deem that as acceptance. When we talk about being able to waive contracts or to revoke offers, you'll see why that's important. Also, acceptance cannot be made because one party says to the other, this will be deemed accepted if you do not notify us otherwise by next Thursday. Silence is no acceptance. There must be a meeting of the minds, and therefore it has to be acknowledged by the party. The mirror rule is very important in contracts. What that says is that the acceptance must be exactly the same as the offer. It has to be the mirror image of the offer. Any modification at all is a counteroffer and a rejection. So that means if you're in the middle of negotiations and you've been working on it for weeks and you're down to the last little detail of it, and you or the other side decides that they want to make a minor change, and you say to the other side, okay, this is fine, but you need to deliver the products by next week, not in a week and a half, which had been what the offer was. That is a rejection of the offer. The offer is terminated, and it's a new offer by the person that was going to be accepting it, is now the offeror making a counteroffer to the offeree who initially made the proposal. So any modification is a rejection and a counteroffer. If you're in some serious negotiations, be very careful when you try to squeeze that last little bit out. You may just squeeze to the point that gives the other side the opportunity to walk away. Okay, offer termination. Can't see the top there, but an offer can actually be terminated. When can it be terminated? It can be terminated only until it's been accepted. At any time until it's been accepted, the offer may be terminated. Once it's accepted, though, there is no longer an ability. There is a binding contract, and there is promises on both sides to do things. So the contract provision can have a termination. It says that if this is not accepted by 5 p.m. tomorrow night, then the offer is terminated. So the contract itself can make provision for termination. It can be a lapse of time. Now, again, the contract would say what the amount of that time would be. A rejection by the offeree. In other words, an offer is made, the offeree rejects it, then the offer's off the table. Or if they give a counteroffer, remember a counteroffer is a rejection of the offer and then making a new offer back to the other party. A revocation, the offeror, until the time that the contract's been accepted, the offeror may say, I revoke my offer. They've changed their mind. And then it's too late for the other party, the offeree, to accept it. The destruction of the subject of the contract, if it's a ship, a plane, a house, the house burns down, then that terminates the offer if it's been done prior to acceptance. Or the offeror's death or insanity. So that if there's a contract pending out there and an individual has made it, not a corporation or a business, then if the offeror dies, then that automatically terminates the offer and there is no contract. Or if the performance becomes illegal. You think of this during Prohibition, where selling alcohol became illegal. There were certainly contracts prior to the passage of that law that people were going to be buying and selling alcohol. Once that law was passed, it became illegal and the offer was terminated and there was no way of forming a contract. Look at Glendy Motors v. Superior Court so we can look at offer and counteroffer. Don's going to be briefing that. So, okay. Now, contract formation. You have an agreement. So both parties have agreed to something. So you think you have an agreement, right? Not necessarily. The contract would be void if it is not for a legal purpose. So you cannot enter into contracts for illegal actions. It can be voidable in certain situations, such as fraud or duress, where one party may end up terminating it. So, lawful purpose, what is that? We look at, maybe that helps a little bit. Illegal, it's void. Neither party can enforce it. Examples, gambling, usury, charging more interest than is allowed. If it's an unlicensed contractor, if it's unconscionable, the court looks at it and says that one party was just taking advantage of the other one. If it's prohibited, murder for hire, prostitution, those are illegal actions. And therefore, it is a void contract, unenforceable. The courts will take no action. In a gambling situation, they actually leave the parties where they find them. And so it will not force somebody to give something back, nor will it force somebody to deliver on a promise if it was a gambling debt. Covenants not to compete can be unenforceable in certain areas. So that's a void contract. It's like the contract never happened. What is a voidable? Well, that is where one party can say, I'm not going to follow the contract. It is a void contract. And so it could be mutual mistake. It does not go to value. If the people just thought that they were buying a junk picture and it turns out to be a Picasso, both people misunderstood what the value was. There was a mutual mistake, but that is not voidable by either party. Unilateral, so it's a mutual mistake where they just both made a mistake. And you look at the USS Peerless case. Unilateral, one party makes a mistake, contracts are enforceable. And so it takes both parties to make it unenforceable. Fraud, Campbell v. McClure, LaShalle's going to talk about that. Misrepresentation and duress. Somebody holds a gun to your head, makes you sign a contract, it's unenforceable. And then undue influence is the last point. That's a situation where you have usually dealing with elderly or something like that, where somebody is accused that they're under the undue influence of somebody else. So you have offer acceptance, you have an agreement, but it must be supported by consideration, something of legal value that is bargained for. Gift is not consideration, prior consideration. Look at the Robert Chuckrow Construction v. Gao. Kayla's going to be briefing that, and you can discuss that. And then finally, there has to be capacity and legality. Minors under the age of 18, it is a voidable. They can disaffirm, and they do not have to return the items to their original condition. Intoxicated or mentally incompetent is avoidable. The party can disaffirm, but they must return the items in their original condition. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on assignments and novations, but that's the end of chapter 8.